Welcome back to CP's Garage, where today we are working on another 3-liter, but this time you see we're already to the timing belt. The timing belt pins are in, the main pin on the crank is in, but what's not in is that new oil pump. So that's what we're going to do next. We have a bunch of parts laying over here on the floor, including a new oil pump. Since we're doing the oil pump, we also need a crank seal. Well, guess what? Ford Motor Company's still on back order, and they're not going to be off back order until the first of the year. So we have a Dana/Victor Wren crank seal, and to show you that it does fit, so here's the seal. Here's our new oil pump. We'll take our locating pin out. Look at you there, it fits around there. Only thing we have to check is the crankshaft, which I don't think we're going to have a problem with anyways, because we have a tool for that right there to size it up. This is a Land Rover part I got from Rock Auto for $8. So you Land Rover guys that are paying $80 for these at the Land Rover dealer, either buy an aftermarket one on Rock Auto or buy Ford, because these things are like $8. So let's continue on this guy. First step of this is take off these pans, right, and this fabric cover, so we can access the starter bolts and the starter assembly, so we can put the locking tool in, so we can take the crank gear off. Maybe I can recover my socket that I lost this morning. Oh, there it is. Found my lost 7mm. The starter bolts will be a 10mm, and we should be able to slide that out and down out of our way, because all we're doing is putting in a locking tool that, you know, Mr. I Do Cars should have used on his Land Rover engine, instead of breaking that nice 15mm box on wrench. Alright, we're under the truck now. We're going to be going after those 10mm bolts and that one up there. Then we're also going to go after this little ground strap right there, that 13mm. So we'll come back once that's done. See if we can get the starter out of the way. Without any major complications. Alright, starter's out. That clears away now for us. That clears away for us to put the timing lock tool right there. Lock that flywheel so we can break the front crank bolt loose. Look at it. Just look at it. There's the starter. Just kind of hanging out there. Let's go get that locking tool. So here's the locking tool that Ford uses. One tooth. Really? That's all you could give us, is like one tooth? But here's the tool number if you need it. Comes with 2 bolts and a third in there to adjust it. Too bad Eric didn't have this. It probably would have been a whole lot easier. Land Rover makes their own. It's a little bit different than Ford's because of the way the starter area is on the Land Rovers. So let's go down and install this, and, well, actually, let's make sure that our crankshaft is on the pin. I've got my 21mm on the crank, and let's go forward. Yep, she is locked on there, so we can install our locking pin now. To install this tool, you loosen up the adjustable finger then you put the 2 bolts in like you would do a starter. And it goes in this orientation. To do this job, all right, tool is installed, and now we got to make sure we get that in a tooth, which I cannot see real well. And it feels like it went in. So now we'll tighten that bolt with a 13 millimeter. We'll tighten these 2 bottoms. We'll tighten the 2 bottom ones with a 13 millimeter, and that crankshaft should be good to go. All right, so the next thing we gotta do is take out that big old crank bolt. It says we need to mark it in the workshop manual, but since we're doing a new pump in the crankshaft seal section, I have also put these on Google Drive for you guys. The next step is to pull that bolt. It says we need to mark the sprocket location, but being that we're putting a new pump on it, it's not really going to line up. But what you can see is there's a little tang right there that kind of lines up with that webbing. So that's what I'm going to do, is just line that tang back up with the webbing. These crank pulleys do not have a key in them. They should just come off technically, but sometimes they're a pain. In the Jaguar manual, it shows to use a 3-draw puller if you can't get it off. So we'll see what happens to this. But you'll need a 21 millimeter for the bolt. I would suggest backing out your timing pin so you don't bend it, because this has got close to 400 Newton meters. This has got close to 400 Newton meters of torque on it, and I don't know if my ratchet's going to break this or not. So let's pull out that timing pin. Since we are locked in on the crank, we should be able to pull out the timing pin without any real worry. We were able to break it by hand. Didn't have to get the gun. Thank God. Remember, this is one-time use, so once you break it, you're done. Go get a new one. The LR Time Land Rover guys actually reuse these sometimes. They say up to 3 times, but I'm not reusing it for a $15 bolt from Ford. I will replace it. And as you see, that thing just came right off. Be careful when you're taking these apart. There is a diamond washer in here that will fall out. Ford doesn't show that it's replaceable, but Land Rover does show it's replaceable. So if you want to go hunting for the Land Rover one, you can. If not, no biggie. Also, to remove that crank pulley, you could make a round piece of steel that bolts to the front of the crankshaft and hold it with a long piece of pipe or something, kind of like the LR time guy does, and be able to hold it. But that's scary because you're moving the crank as well. So this way is best to put the locking pin in and locking tool in, pull the pin out, break it, then you can put your pin back in. But now we're going to get the crank seal. So Ford gives you a nice nifty seal remover. Well, they don't give you it, you gotta buy it. But this is the seal remover, and this is the adapter for the seal remover. The seal tool goes in like this, and you slide this hook on the seal, and then you just tighten this up against the oil pump, and it pulls it out. Unfortunately, Ford doesn't say this doesn't come in the 3.0 kit, so you have to buy this, then buy this separate. So let's get the seal out so we can pull the oil pump. You want to do this so the tool will end up on this flat surface if you're using the tool. Screw with a pair of vice grips or something and pull it out. Get that in there. You can see that we got it in there. Got it locked on. The seal. Now we just need to pull it. This way it makes it easier to get the pump out. It is an 8mm. So I'm just going to use a ratchet because it doesn't need much to pull that out. And as you can see, that seal comes right out. No fight. Just comes right off. Here it is. Alright, next step since we've got the crank pulley off and it's locked, we can take out these little green covers. There's one on each side. Just take a needle nose and you can get it out. The driver's side is a little harder to get out, but they should come out relatively easy. There's the other one. You can replace them if you want. These ones look fine to me. And there's a little rip, but it is what it is. It's going to get you reused. Now it's time to take off oil pump bolts, and they look to be 8mm. But before we do that, we need to take off this connector right here. This is the oil pressure solenoid for these Gen 2 3 liters, including Land Rover. Land Rover actually uses the exact same pump. part number and all. This you may have to blow out with some brake clean and some shop air if you live in nasty environments. This one I'm going to use small pokey. This one I'm going to use a small pokey tool from the front and lift up the tab and hopefully slide it off. Yep, right off it goes. And there is a Christmas tree on the oil pump as well. Use your handy dandy Christmas tree puller tools that you should have bought already because you knew you were going to do this job and you've watched my video. It's way down there underneath the water pump. Hard to see, hard to get a camera down there too. So you're just gonna have to trust me, it's a pain. It's just a little guy too. For the workshop manual, it says take the 4 off that are underneath the oil pan first, then take the rest off, but I'm up top, so I'm going to start with the top ones. I'm going to take off this little piece of wire loom so we can have a little more access and we don't have a problem getting the oil pump off or on, because it is sitting above the oil pan and it looks like it's right in the way. Now I gotta go down below and get the 4 bolts from below. Maybe I can get them from up here, we'll see. We'll see. Not like that. Maybe a shallow 10. We're going to try to attack this with a shallow 10mm on a 1/4" ratchet. Or a shallow 8mm on a 1/4" ratchet. Well, I'm ended up going from the bottom up. I'm using a 8mm swivel and a long extension to get the bottom ones. Ain't gonna lie, these ones are gonna be a pain in the arse to put back on. But I'll just leave them on the floor, on my mat, so I know where to find them. I know which ones are the bottom bolts and which ones are the top bolts because they look a little shorter. The hardest one is going to be the driver's side closest to the block, because there is a black piece of channeling right in its way, but the hole is for the most part open. That worked. So I'll be coming back up here in a second. I did miss one bolt. All the way underneath. All the way down here underneath everything. I missed it. All the way down there. Alright, we got the oil pump ready to pull out. It says to be extremely careful not to damage the block stiffener gasket, because if you do, you put a new block stiffener gasket in it. So we can find a spot to lightly pry on it. Alright, so we're going to take some kind of prying device to try to pry this pump off. Now I just gotta find a spot to pry. It looks halfway decent, it's not. Oh, there we go. Got it to break free a little bit. Oh, there we go. There we go. Just trying to pull it off little by little. I believe there's also some RTV on it. Yeah, that would have been a nightmare to do with the seal on. Good call, Ford, for telling us to take the seal off first. Ouch! It's loud. Just kind of wiggle her out. It's like I thought we'd run into that plastic thing. Good thing I took the bolt out. Now we just gotta pry that off. Then hope we can get it back on. There we go. Maybe we can get it off without going any further. Alright, now that we got the pump off, we just need to clean up our workspace and get ready to install the new pump. We'll do a bead of silicone there. We'll do a bead of silicone down here in this corner as well. Alright, let's wipe this thing down. We're going to do an oil change on this as well. So I'm not too concerned if anything gets in the pan. I'm mainly concerned just getting this gasket surface clean and making sure we don't have any ripped gaskets from taking that pump off. I'm also going to clean off the crank as well. I guess we can do some brake clean mafia stuff too. Not make much of a difference. I'm gonna dry it immediately anyway. Plus, like I said, this thing's gonna get an oil change as soon as we're done here. Some might tell me that I just messed up the gasket, but I don't think so. We'll be alright. Unlike the 6.7, this actually has a real gasket down there. Alright, so Ford basically just says, fill this up with oil, prime it. That's it. It doesn't say anything at all. So, looking at the Land Rover procedure, it says to put 20 milliliters through the hole, then spin it counterclockwise. Well, Ford on their workshop manual says spin it clockwise. So what is it? Is it counterclockwise? Clockwise? I don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill it through here, then spin it clockwise or counterclockwise, and maybe we'll see a little oil coming out of the bottom. But I don't have a measuring device, so we're just going to put oil in it and probably just watch for oil to come out of the bottom. We're using Rotunda T6. I don't care what oil you use, just change your oil. Use Motorcraft, use whatever you want. I'm not an oil snob. Ooh, I'm making a mess. Probably just like an oil filter. Just like an oil filter. Prime it right down the clean side of the engine. Whoops. As you can see, I'm just putting my fingers in the tabs and spinning it. Ooh, we got oil at the other end. It's primed. See? Now we'll wipe this mess up. Once you prime this thing, just kind of keep it somewhere where you can not make a mess, because it's going to make a mess. Then get your little red, get the little red device back in there, or white, whatever it is, this guy, because you'll need that when you reinstall it on the block. That's to keep the rotor inside the pump centered. Alright, next up is to use our favorite RTV TA31 for the 7.3 liter diesels. This is the only glue you should be using on anything Ford diesel, in my opinion. Even on 6.7 oil pans, when it says use TA357, we've gone over this on Power Stroke Tech Talk with A-Rod so many times. It's not funny. 357 is not the right stuff for these vehicles. Confirmed by Loctite, the people who actually make the glue for Ford and International. So what's next is we're going to put a dab of glue there and a dab of glue there. We'll just kind of go across the edge, and we'll go across this edge. Don't need much, just enough to cover up the gap between the pump and the engine block and the oil pan. Ford doesn't say to put it on. So there seems to be a debacle between Ford and Land Rover on what to do here. Ford says just do the two seals, the two little bit on each side, but Land Rover also wants you to also recommends to apply it, to smear it across here as well. So we're going to smear it across there because Land Rover recommends it. This is technically a Land Rover engine. I'm just going to get a little dab on my finger and go across the seal. It said to just smear it on. I'm not going to put a lot on it. Just enough to cover the black. It doesn't need much. I go around the oil pump as well. Oil pickup hole as well. Trying not to get any in there. You don't want to put a lot on it anyways, because they'll just all get pushed backwards. Alright, so now we got 10 minutes to get this pump in, so let's get that done now. Got 10 minutes to get it in and torqued. Make sure you clean the mating surface on the block side of it so that RTV has something to stick to. When you put this pump on, make sure you have the locator inside of the oil pump installed. And now we're going to install this bad mamma jamma. Here goes nothing. And this locator just fell out. And oil just went everywhere. Alright, this is going to take a little finesse. Alright, now we got the oil pump installed. It's time to install our new crank seal. This is a Dana-made seal. It is for a Land Rover. The part number is cross-referenced from a Land Rover seal, which is also cross-referenced from a Ford seal. Now we got to get our crank seal installer tool. We first install the stretcher. It just threads in there. Remember, the seal goes in clean and dry, according to the workshop manual. So we just kind of slip it on. It says to spin the seal as we're slipping it on. And once it's on, we get it to pump. And we try to get it as square as possible. We'll take this guy out. Then we'll install the seal installer. Land Rover says not to remove the installer for at least 10 seconds once fully seated. So we'll follow that direction, since we're kind of already following Land Rover's directions as it is. I will grab a socket for this, so I'm not guessing. The bolt size for this is a 24 millimeter for this specific one. Probably just do it by hand. Just take it in until it seats on the oil pump. That's all there is to it. Now we'll let that sit there and allow the seal to rest. I've also read in places where they say they don't want you to run the engine for 4 hours once the seal is installed. So this engine's not going to get ran after 4 hours. It's going to be apart for longer than that, because we still had to do the rear belt, and it's getting dark. Now we can reinstall our little seals. They install super easy. You just kind of push in and block the contaminants from the outside coming in. Just like that, they're installed. Alright, we can take our seal tool off. Crank seal is installed, and it looks like factory. You see it's got a little step, so it actually sits down 1 millimeter further than flush. Alright, now it's time for the fun part. Going back together again. So I did end up marking this just so I knew which tab was up. So as you can see, got a new bolt. It's not the dark dingy one that was on it before. We have that lined up with this right here. We're going to take this down. And then we're going to tighten it to a super retarded tight. Because we couldn't put a keyway in here for some reason. I mean, a keyway would have made life a lot easier and a lot less likely for the thing to go kapooey. I know it's less likely, but see how that could just move on you? Anyways, we're about right, so let's go get our torque. So once again, Ford and Land Rover did not agree on something. So Land Rover says 150 Newton meters, then 300. Ford says 100 Newton meters, then 300 Newton meters, then 90 degrees. Both of them, the two last ones are 390. But the first is different. Like, why? Can't we all just get on the same page? I mean, it's the same motor. So we're going to go to 100 newts first. Then we're going to go to the 300. Then we're going to try to do our 90. So there's one. And for you standard people, that's 74 foot-pounds and then 221. Now for 300 Newton meters, we're 221 foot-pounds, which is almost max of the torque wrench. Let's try to get this in one steady motion instead of multiple screw-ups. I'm gonna put the camera back a little. Sorry. Don't quite know if I'm going to be able to do this in one steady motion, but we're going to try. Nope. Don't have enough swing. That is freaking tight. How the hell am I going to turn that 90 degrees? The fun part's going to be getting this thing to go 90 degrees. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. But we're going to have to make it happen. Since I don't have a degree wheel, we're just going to mark the bolt. Since I don't have a degree thing, we're just going to mark the bolt. The line, that's going to be good enough. Definitely not going to be able to get this in one swing. I'm going to mark the socket too. I need to change positions. Don't have enough leverage for right there. All right. Holy shit. Fucking almost there. that 90 degrees, guys? Because it looks like it. Sure looks like it. Nope, it needs a little bit more. Shit. I'm gonna have to tighten that flex head because it is now loose. We gotta get it go a little bit more for me to be happy. I'm gonna have to climb up here and put all my weight on it. Holy crap! I can't put enough weight on it. I'm a big boy. I'm a big boy. Ah! So that's all, folks. That's what it's going to be, and it's 90 degrees. Whew. All right, so the flywheel holding tool has been removed. Eric, get one. They're cheap. And now we're basically back to where you would be if you're doing a regular timing belt. So we got the crank pulley on, got the sealant, the new oil pump, got the dust seals back on each side. We're basically back to doing a timing belt. So now you can go watch my timing belt video, since you probably were there first, then found this video, or you were here first, then you didn't know I had a timing belt video. So go check out that timing belt video. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. See ya.